Hey cats, what's happening? Just a little intro there of our multiple flowers throughout the property, as requested by one of our viewers. Oh, it's warm in here. Well, even though we opened up that video with a flower show, I'm going to talk about the motorcycle a little bit today. How far can you go? Now, I'm not talking about, stamina or, I can ride 1,000 miles in a day or, nothing like that. But how far can your bike go on a tank of fuel? This bike has a little bit of variation. Now, I like to say that my average, and I've never run out of fuel in this thing. I have had to hit the reserve tank a couple times. Down on the petcock, it does have a fuel reserve. You can flip it. If you run out of fuel, you just pull the lever up and it empties out a reserve tank, and it gives you, like, I don't know, maybe an extra 25 miles or something like that to get to a service station. But very rarely have I had to use that. I think V and I used it once when we were up on, we were up near Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills in South Dakota. And we were going up over the one pass there, and we ran out of fuel. And luckily we had the reserve that we could flip on, and rode down to the bottom, and I think we rode into Keystone or something like that, and were able to fill up with fuel. But anyway, generally I can get maybe 180 to 200 miles on a tank of gas, maybe a little over 200, depending on how I run my carburetor. Now let me demonstrate, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about. On this bike, I have this choke right here, and I can pull that in, push it in. It's got a little slide on it, probably comes about a ½ inch in and out. So I have it pulled all the way out right now. So let's... push it all the way in, it'll idle really slow. So I usually don't run it like that, but even if I run it like this, it'll use a lot less fuel. If I run the choke out like this, I'll get a little more power. So in other words, the more gas I'm feeding into the carburetor, the more oomph the bike has, the more torque it has. If I push the choke in and lower that idle, it's kind of a pig. So generally I run it pretty rich because I like the little more pickup that it has. If I'm traveling on the highway for a long period of time, I'll push the choke in because it'll use less fuel, and as long as I can maintain speed, I don't need that extra power that I like, riding around town and stuff here. So if I run it rich, the gas tank's going to empty out, pretty much be empty at 180 miles. Or close within that range. If I push the choke in, I get well over 200 miles. So, like anything, you run it hard, you use more fuel. You run it easy, you use less fuel. Now let me tell you a couple of stories. There was one where, I was riding out west there, and I had been in Utah, and I was on the scooter, and I was coming in through Colorado. Now, when you're out there, and I stayed on basically state routes. I stayed off the highways. I just wanted to see the country. Not from the highway, not from the expressway, not from the fast-moving cars, but just a nice view of the backcountry, I guess. And when you do that, you have to be very cognizant of where the fuel stations are, and there's not very many. Now, I didn't have a cell phone back then. I didn't have a GPS or anything like that, so I had a paper map, and actually, when you're a member of the Harley Owners Group, every year they send you a map book. That's pretty nice because you can go through there and every state, clear up into Canada, it's pretty accurate, gives you the routes. So I was able to follow that, and I could see where the little towns were, and so I knew, okay, there's a couple towns along this route, so I should be able to get fuel. But some of these towns you'd come to, and it would say, population 12, yeah, and there's no fuel station. Now I don't know where they got their fuel. It's kind of funny because the other day a guy came over here to give me a quote, and while he was here, he goes, I think I drove the last 20 miles and never saw a fuel station, and I need to get gas. Are we that far out here in the country that there's no gas stations? Now, there's plenty of gas stations around here. It's just the route that he took that brought him here, where he didn't pass a fuel station. And I said, yeah, within 3-4 miles any direction, you're going to find a gas station. So I kind of gave him a little tip on the easiest way to get there, and he was pretty grateful. He was able to get some gas because he said he was pretty much running on fumes. But anyway, here I am out there in the middle of western Colorado, and coming through there, and I'm finding that there's no gas stations. So I was, not real worried. I figured, okay, I'll find something eventually before I get there. I'm like at, 80 miles right now on this tank, and I still got a ways to go. So, I got my choke pushed all the way in. I'm running really lean. And I'm going and going and going, and I get up to 100 miles. I get up to 120 miles. I'm still no gas station. I get up to 150 miles, 160 miles. Now I'm at 175 miles, and I still haven't found a gas station, and I'm thinking, boy, I can almost hear the little bit of fuel sloshing around in what's left in my tank, and I got to get fuel pretty soon. I don't know how much fuel I really have. These things don't have a gas gauge. What I do is I use the trip meter on here. I always have the trip meter set to 0 every time I fuel up. So when my trip meter gets to like 180 miles, I stop and refuel. And I usually don't let it get that far. If I get up to, say, like 100 miles, I'll just stop and fill it up to the top. So here I am, going and going and going. And I come to these little towns, and, oh, there's a gas station. And I go to pull in there, and it's deserted. It's closed. It's shut down. There's nobody home. I'm like, uh-oh, keep going. Another gas station, abandoned, closed, shut down, weeds growing up in the parking lot. Keep going. And luckily I found, I kept looking everywhere, I gotta find somewhere to get fuel. I gotta find somewhere. I'm pushing like 200 miles now. And I happen to see this really small building, it wasn't run down. It looked like it was pretty well kept. But there's this little small building up on the hill, and it looked like there's a fuel pump out in front of this building, and there's kind of a nice driveway going up to it that looped around. So I rode up there, And I pulled up to the fuel pump and I said, even if it's a farmer or something, hopefully he can give me some fuel. Well, I walked over there and the door was open, and I walked in, and there was 3 elk hunters sitting in there. They were completely camoed up, ready to go out and hunt some elk. Had their weapons there with them and everything, and they were kind of looking at me and smirking, and I said, I've been on the road for a long time, and I'm almost out of fuel. I'm running on fumes. Is there any way I can get some fuel here? And the guy said, sure. Go on out there and fill yourself up, and then just come on in, tell me how much you got, and you can settle up. Boy, was I elated. I was able to fill up my bike and pay them and hit the road again, and made it into Hot Springs, Colorado within a couple hours from there. That was probably the scariest one I did, but V and I were riding in Pennsylvania. We wanted to see the elk. Now, there are elk in Pennsylvania. There's about mid-north, right in the north center somewhere of Pennsylvania. It's called Elk County. And there was a herd of elk that was introduced there years ago, and that elk herd has flourished there, and there's kind of scattered around that whole area. Depending on what time of year you go, you can really get some good pictures of the elk. And people go up there to hunt elk. It's kind of a very, very rural country area. There's not a whole lot going on up there. So we decided to go out there, and we get off the highway, and then you're all on back roads, and they're all twisty turning, following the river, and you just go forever. Well, I think we ended up seeing maybe 2 elk the whole day, and those were just doe that were like, one was standing in somebody's driveway, and the other one we just barely got a glimpse of. But the places where it was well known to where you would see elk, there was nothing. We didn't see anything. So we kind of got to the end of the road, and we came to this town. This town had been an old railroad town. And it was, a pretty decent-sized town at one time, with a lot of business there. But the railroad had dried up, and so did the town. We didn't know that. We didn't know the history of the area. A lot of poor people, a lot of poor folk there, and I don't even know how people could afford to live there because there's no work anywhere. I mean, they had to all be on welfare or something, whoever was still living there. But as we entered this town, the first gas station we came to was deserted. Boarded up, actually, with plywood over the windows and weeds growing up around the fuel pumps. Said, okay, well, that's out. We'll just keep going through town and look for another fuel station. Well, this town didn't have any McDonald's, no Burger Kings, no Quickie Marts, no nothing. And we get to the other side of town, and there's a BP fuel station. Pull in there, again, deserted, shut down, nobody home, out of business, done. Oh boy, now what are we going to do? So we turned around, we rode back up through town, and I took a couple side streets trying to figure out what was around there, and we came to this little ma and pa store. So I got off and I walked in there, and I said, hey, we really need some fuel. Is there anywhere around here we can get fuel? And the lady said, yeah, if you turn around here and go on up through the main town there, go right down Main Drag here, and you'll see over there on the left-hand side, right on the curb, they got a fuel pump there, and that's the only place you can get gas around here. All right. So we went back up through town, and we went right down through the main drag there, which wasn't much, but, it was downtown. And there, over on the left-hand side, was one of these old-time fuel pumps there on the side of the road. So we kind of went in on oncoming lane and pulled over to the curb to get fueled up. And I'm trying to figure out how to work the fuel pump. Well, this guy comes out, wearing his blue one-piece mechanic suit thing, and I do the fuel in here. I'll take care of you. Okay, haven't seen this for a while. Full service. Yeah, he wants to clean the windshield and everything. And it wasn't cheap either. I think it was probably like $5 a gallon or something. But anyway, we got fuel and we were to get out of Dodge, and we hightailed it back to the highway. But we were way back in the boonies there. Had we run out of fuel, I don't know what we would have done. I don't know how we would have got help, because really it was just a very poor part of the state. I mean, these people didn't have any money at all. They were just a bunch of old hillbillies, you know. Anyway, that was my story on close calls with running out of fuel, and I haven't had that problem lately because we haven't done any long rides, and usually the fuel tank's filled up and ready to go. How much do I got in here right now? I haven't even looked, but I'm on 90 miles right now, and I just filled up a couple weeks back, so plenty of fuel in there to ride somewhere, but I'll have to stop on my next ride and get it filled back up again. Alright, cats, there you go. Thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you on board. And until next time, ride hard, die free.